Lermer just went towards Sanders.
I am taking the intro. Go live. And I am taking the intro now.
What our country needs now more than ever is the spirit of aloha.
This election, seriously, is just too important for our party to have the same kinds of divisions that we saw back in 2016. We just cannot do that again.
You showed that we are united in our conviction that hope defeats fear, that courage overcomes cynicism, that we will always be a stronger party and a stronger nation when we unite around our shared values.
Let's get something straight. Wall Street did not build America. Investment bankers did not build America. Hard-working middle-class people built America. Unions built the middle class.
All over this country, workers are sick and tired of earning starvation wages. You can't make it on $9 an hour or $11 an hour or $12 an hour. We are going to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Hello and thank you for joining us on the 745 Met Media Super Tuesday update. I'm Brenden Mincheff along with Yoselin Meza-Miranda and Brenden Gilliss. So we do have 3 states that have been called at this point, including our state of Colorado. Bernie Sanders is projected to win the state of Colorado tonight with 43% reporting. He's got a 36.4% of the overall vote here in the state of Colorado. We are also ready to call the state of Tennessee for Joe Biden, even though some of the polls have remained open later due to the tornado of Nashville last night. Joe Biden is projected to win the state of Tennessee at this point with 55% of the vote reporting. Joe Biden currently has 39% of the overall vote in the state. And finally, the state of Oklahoma. Joe Biden is also projected to win the state of Oklahoma with 38% of the overall vote and 71% of ballots counted. So guys, not a whole lot of surprise in these 3 states. I think probably if you asked people before the start of the night who was going to win the state of Tennessee and state of Oklahoma, state of Colorado, you'd say Joe Biden, and Bernie Sanders. But what might be somewhat surprising is Michael Bloomberg is actually picking up several of the rural counties here in Colorado, including Cheyenne County and Kit Carson County out on the Eastern Plains. Is that surprising at all? Do you think that Michael Bloomberg is picking up votes here in Colorado?
Yeah, I think that's a little surprising to me personally. I didn't know. I didn't think that he was spending that much more money here in Colorado in particular rather than any other spot. So, to see him having such a strong second place, it definitely is a little bit of a surprise to me coming into this.
Yeah. Joe Biden is picking up some votes now. He's got Boca County in the southeast corner and Jackson County up in the northern mountains of Colorado. But another state, Texas, right now not called, it's too early to tell in the state of Texas, but Bernie Sanders is actually doing pretty well leading the state of Texas. 34% of that vote is in, and Bernie Sanders currently has 28% of the overall vote. Again, less than half of the state is reporting. There's a lot of time for change, and we kind of talked about this a little bit on our last update. But Joe Biden is making a little bit of an inroads in Texas. Michael Bloomberg, not so much. He's got 150,000 votes, 18%. Is that surprising to see Bloomberg failing in a state like Texas?
Honestly, I think it is kind of surprising, but at the same time it's not, because we would say that Bernie or Joe would be, being on top of the race. So being such a big state, I would think that, it is a bit surprising that he is taking up some of those counties in Texas.
And I'm a little surprised too by the fact that, like you said, it's too early to call, but Bernie is doing pretty good in Texas, and I kind of would have thought beforehand that Biden might have been a person who would do better, just knowing that Texas usually isn't a state that you wouldn't expect to see such support for a progressive candidate. And so Bernie's clearly doing a good job picking up people from places that you wouldn't have expected.
And while we haven't actually called any Republican primary races tonight, without a surprise here for sure, Donald Trump has won every primary tonight. Some states haven't even held Republican primaries because there's just no challenger to the president right now. I know Bill Weld, we talked to somebody at Front Range Community College earlier tonight. Their first time voting, and they voted for Bill Weld, the Republican. But it's just, there is no competition on the Republican side, not surprising. What may be surprising is the turnout for the president tonight. I know in Colorado he's gotten over 98% of the vote in the Republican primary. So it's interesting to kind of see these numbers coming in when you have one state like Iowa and then one state like New Hampshire and then Nevada and South Carolina. It's hard to really get a really good picture of how the country as a whole is feeling. It's like, oh, we know this state, we know that state, but tonight, for the first time in this primary season, we're getting an idea of how the country as a whole feels. And who would you say so far to this point is winning tonight?
Well, I definitely got to say Biden for that. I mean, he's the front runner. He's been called as a projected winner for basically almost every state. It remains to be seen, though, because if Bernie can take Texas, then that shifts the playing field a little bit, because Texas is one of the two big states that delegates, or that the candidates need to win delegates from. So if Bernie can pull that off, then I would be a little more open to saying that it could be something for Bernie better in the long term.
I believe the same thing that you say, and we still have some states that haven't been reported yet, so there's still a chance that they can be kind of equal. But right now, I would say Biden's taking the lead.
I think Biden has taken the lead as well, and is probably at this point in the night the campaign to beat is what it looks like. Because the thing is, it's not winner take all primaries, right? So even if Senator Sanders wins the state of Texas as a whole, he doesn't necessarily win every delegate in Texas. If he only wins by 10, 50, 100 delegates, 100 delegates is nice, but it's not necessarily enough to really close the gap that Biden has opened up tonight. So things to watch. We are expecting a few more states to close at 8 o'clock here Mountain Time. States that are closing: Utah and Minnesota just recently closed at 7. California doesn't close until 9 o'clock our time. So we'll be waiting a little bit on those results. So yeah, Utah is kind of the next state, slightly more conservative, I would say, than Colorado. So I would expect that would probably go to Joe Biden.
I would agree.
The state of Minnesota right now is still too close to call, but Biden does have a lead over Senator Sanders, 36% to 31%. Amy Klobuchar has still picked up over 15,000 votes in the state of Minnesota, but obviously she dropped out. So it really doesn't count for a whole lot.
It's just hometown support.
It's the hometown support, exactly. How often do you get to vote for a hometown candidate? That is about all we have right now. At this hour, we estimate that Joe Biden has about 135 delegates, whereas Bernie Sanders has only about 100 tonight, that they picked up tonight. The overall delegate race right now, Joe Biden has 174 total, Bernie Sanders has 112 total. Third is actually Pete Buttigieg, who dropped out. He has 26, Elizabeth Warren has 12. Amy Klobuchar, who also dropped out, has 7. Bloomberg picked up all of his delegates tonight, but he only has 6, mostly from the American Territory of American Samoa. And Tulsi Gabbard has also picked up 1 delegate from American Samoa tonight. We will be back in about half an hour to provide you with another update of, actually we just have a race that's been called, and it is the state of Minnesota. It has indeed gone to Joe Biden.
Perfect.
We expected that.
Yeah,
That's what we were just talking about. So more delegates to former Vice President Joe Biden from the state of Minnesota. I would expect Massachusetts maybe call it at some point soon, but we were looking at the state of Maine, and Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders are only separated by less than 200 votes.
Right.
So we may not hear from Maine for a little bit. But yeah, we'll be back in about half an hour with some more info for you. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned. We'll see you in a bit.
I just kind of went along with everything you guys were saying. I'm like, yeah, I agree.
Sorry.
We're all good.
Soul show now. That's chill. First time I'm here.
Yeah, you did good.